very big affirmation, viewers, of the way in which the Modi government has handled national security and especially internal security, viewers. Sushant Sareen is also here with us. Big win for the government. The CPI Maoists have declared a ceasefire with the Modi government. Remember, viewers, about 15 years to about 17 years ago, then Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh had said that the Maoist insurgency in this country was the #1 security threat, internal security threat to this country. Today, the CPI Maoists have thrown in the towel and they have come out and said that we want an unconditional ceasefire. And I want to go straight across to Arunima, who actually is reporting on this story. Arunima, massive turning point.
Yes, and this is something which government was pushing for. In fact, this statement that has been issued by Abhay, he goes by a single name. He calls himself the spokesperson of CPI Maoist. I'm just reading out, the statement is in Hindi. Just bear with me as I translate. He says, हमारे पार्टी के माननीय महासचिव ने के पहलकदमी पर शुरू हुई शांति वार्ता को प्रक्रिया को आगे ले जाने के लिए तहत हम ये स्पष्ट करना चाहते हैं कि बदलते हुए विश्व एवं देश की परिस्थितियों के अलावा लगातार देश के प्रधानमंत्री, गृह मंत्री से लेकर वरिष्ठ पुलिस अधिकारियों तक हमें हथियार छोड़कर मुख्य धारा में शामिल होने के लिए लगातार अनुरोध कर रहे हैं. So this says that everyone from the Prime Minister to the Home Minister to senior police officers have been telling us continuously to give up arms and become a part of the mainstream. So इसके मद्देनजर हमने तय किया है हथियार छोड़ने का निर्णय लिया है, which means we are giving up arms. हथियार बंद संघर्ष को अस्थायी रूप से विराम घोषित करने का निर्णय लिया है, which means that they are deciding to cease fire without giving any deadline. They're not saying that we are giving a deadline that please come back to us by this date and it's a conditional ceasefire. It is an unconditional ceasefire that they are offering. And in that statement further below, it says a lot of our cadre and senior leadership is in jail. So we need to reach out to them. We need to convince them. So give us 1 month's time. Now, I called up the top intelligence officials who deal with Naxalism. They're still processing the statement that has been issued. And the reason they are being cautious is that in Andhra Pradesh, the experience was that when the Greyhounds put the CPI Maoists on the back foot, they offered ceasefire and utilized the ceasefire timing to regroup and come back in large numbers in Chhattisgarh. So having seen that experience, I think the establishment is treading cautiously, but this definitely is a huge development that CPI Maoist is willing to give up arms and then offer unconditional ceasefire.
Well, viewers, this is very big because tomorrow is, of course, Prime Minister's 75th birthday. Massive vindication for Modi's security doctrine. The Maoist terror group, which is the CPI Maoist, viewers, has decided to throw in the towel. They have surrendered their weapons and they have called for an unconditional ceasefire. They've declared an unconditional ceasefire. This is a massive turning point. The amount of men, material lost, the number of political parties who have been bled by this scourge in the red corridor, as it was called, that once extended across 7 states. And we have a map, viewers, and I will show you how the footprint has shrunk over the years. And we put that map out a few days back, so we're going to pull that out. We're going to try and show you how that sustained onslaught by the Modi government has reduced that massive corridor to a few districts and now one hill area, one very hilly region. And Arunima, talk a little bit about that one bastion that they were holding on to for dear life, and now it appears that it has become unsustainable for them to even do that, and therefore they've thrown in the towel. The timing is a massive boost for Prime Minister Modi's entire doctrine that he founded on no prisoners approach. Arunima.
This statement also, Rahul, makes a reference to the death of Basavanna Raju. Basavanna Raju was the chief of CPI Maoist. He was gunned down earlier this year. In last week of May and in the early part of June, there was a massive, security cordon that was thrown all around Abujmar. And Basavanna Raju, the chief of CPI Maoist, lost his life then. And that, I think, broke the back of CPI Maoists. The only big name that we hear from the party is Hidma, the PLJ Battalion 1, and any time now intelligence agencies are confident that they know broadly where Hidma is. Other than that, this week itself, Kishanji, if you recall, Kishanji was the big Maoist leader who was gunned down in West Bengal. His wife, Sujata, another person who was in the top leadership of CPI Maoist, she has also surrendered. So it is clear that the leadership of CPI Maoist is either surrendering or getting killed. Tirupati has been appointed as the new General Secretary of CPI Maoist, and under his leadership, this offer has come from Abhay, who's the spokesperson, saying we are willing to lay down arms. But I have to point it out once again here that the agencies are treading cautiously. Yes, they want CPI Maoists to surrender. They want them to get back to mainstream. But because of the experience that they have had with the Naxals in Telangana, in Andhra Pradesh, when Telangana and Andhra Pradesh were one state, they're treading cautiously and confirming whether CPI Maoist is serious about giving up arms or the ceasefire offer is just a camouflage to take a step back and then regroup. That's the reason why the agencies are treading cautiously before they react. But because this is big news, that if this is confirmed that Abhay indeed has the support of the entire cadre and leadership, the remaining leadership, then CPI Maoist is making that big turnaround and accepting Home Minister Amit Shah's appeal that give up arms and join the mainstream.
Big viewers, this is a very big development. This is a massive feather in the cap of the Modi government. I just want to quickly open this up also. Arunima, just stay on with me because we're going to go through the timeline with you in just a few moments. It would also be great to actually have you on air with us visually so that we could put you in one of those windows. And I just want to open this up. We were just talking, viewers, about the fact that the Modi government is perceived as one that does not take prisoners or has a no prisoners approach, so to speak, when it comes to defending the national interest, specifically with regards to internal and external security. And that is now being borne out. Now, I just want to quickly get Sushant Sareen's expert opinion on this. There is also, of course, Mr. Jain, who's raising his hand. Remember, viewers, a few days ago, a large number of these great ecosystem types were talking about how human rights were being crushed and so on and so forth, forgetting very, Sanju Verma, stay on with me, forgetting very conveniently the human rights that have been completely crushed by these Maoists of our internal security apparatus and the people that are part of it. Sushant Sareen.
Yeah, so I think, Rahul, I think one can say without any fear of contradiction that the decimation of these Maoists, terrorists, I would call them, is probably the single greatest achievement, at least on the security domain, internal security domain of the Modi government. I don't think anybody can refute that because there was a time when Dr. Manmohan Singh had himself said that something like 140 odd districts were, in a sense, had Maoist influence, and today, they've been reduced to a tiny area, and they would have been decimated had they continued to fight. So I think this ceasefire announcement is not coming because suddenly there's been some kind of a epiphany in these Maoists that they want to have, they want to join the mainstream. But I think it's the sheer force of arms that has forced them into this particular position. And I completely agree with those in the security establishment. But I think this is going to be a little tricky because how do you continue to take a political initiative to take these guys out of the underground and bring them into the mainstream while ensuring that they don't do what they've done many times in the past, which is use the peace, which comes to and then refight against the Indian state. Secondly, and I think very critically, when they talk about human rights, it's a laughable thing. All the terrorists, including these Jaish-e-Mohammed types, will talk about human rights and how people have been killed, etc., etc. But they will never talk about the kind of massacres and the kind of barbarism that the Maoists themselves did to people who did not agree with them or people who opposed them. And there have been instances where almost 70, 80 top politicians and their security personnel were killed, including people from Mr. Jain's party, there have been innumerable security force personnel who have been butchered in cold blood, and clearly the fact that you've broken the back of this particular movement. It was a very pernicious and a very poisonous movement. I think all credit to this government. In the last 10 years, I think this is a stellar achievement of this particular government.
This is very, very big. Yes, Sanju Verma, what would you put this to? What would you put this down to? Many people have been questioning the tactics that were used.
Rahul, I just want to say one thing. Amit Shah, the Union Home Minister, had categorically said after Operation Black Forest in June this year that come 31st March 2026, Naxalism will be dead for good. And lo behold, I think we are moving fast towards that, because don't forget, LWE, left-wing extremism related districts, the number of districts, LWE districts, have come down from 287 in 2013 to just 12 now. Most affected districts by Naxals and Maoists, that number has come down from 164 in 2013 to just 18 now. And there's something called districts of concern, districts that were impeded by the Naxal movement. That number has come down from 178 to just 5. So no matter how you look at the data, left-wing extremism has been dealt a body blow by Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Amit Shah. But very quickly, in 10 seconds, I want to tell the ecosystem, the Darbari ecosystem. There was an Elgar Parishad event held in 2017,
Yes.
and the agenda was to assassinate Prime Minister Modi. And who were the accused? The accused were people like Rona Wilson, Varavara Rao, Anand Teltumbre, Varnan Gonzalez, Gautam Navlakha, Arun Ferreira, Mahesh Raut, Sudhir Dhawale, Jyoti Jagtap,
Yes.
Surendra Gadling, and the dead Stan Swamy. And who has been endorsing Stan Swamy even after his death? Rahul Gandhi and Darbaris.
Well,
who has
viewers,
been endorsing Gautam Navlakha, Rahul Gandhi and Darbaris? Who has been endorsing Varnan
Okay.
Gonsalves, Rahul Gandhi and Darbaris? इसलिए
Well,
थोड़ी शर्म करिए और मोदी सरकार को नेशनल सिक्योरिटी पर भाषण देना बंद करिए.
it's funny because most of the crackdowns on some of these individuals was begun under the UPA, and they've done a complete U-turn now, viewers. That's also an interesting aspect. Arunima, this has been a long fight. Let's not pretend that it has only been restricted to the last 7-8 years, but the quality of the fight has changed. Men, arms, weaponry, money was poured in by the government to build up the forces so that we could actually sustain this assault on these terrorists.
Yes, if I had to call, pinpoint a turning point in the war against CPI Maoists, I would say it was when 76 CRPF men were ambushed, and post that, then Union Home Minister P. Chidambaram and then Union Home Secretary G.K. Pillai ensured that, the policy against how to deal with Naxals underwent a complete turnaround. In between, there were also setbacks. There was this perception within the security establishment that when Bhupesh Baghel was in charge of Chhattisgarh government, things were not moving at the same pace that the central government would have wanted it to. So there was a discord because the Bharatiya Janata Party government was here at the center and Baghel government was there, and Baghel government's constituency was Bastar. So any attempt to upset the cart in Bastar would have affected his own constituency, the tribal constituency. That's one political reason given. But once the Baghel government moved out and the BJP government was there, both in state as well as the center, we saw once again the anti-Naxal operations gaining pace like never before. The kind of operations, just to give you an example, when something as critical as Pahalgam and Baisaran was unfolding, when Home Minister Amit Shah rushed in no time to be in Pahalgam, DG CRPF was not there. Why was he not there? Because he was given the task of carrying out an operation in Bijapur in Chhattisgarh, where they believed the top leadership of CPI Maoists was hiding. So even in the face of a crisis in Kashmir, the focus was not lost on what was achievable in Naxal territory in Chhattisgarh. That's the kind of focus with which the center and the state have moved in Chhattisgarh, because they believe this is the last bastion. And death of Basavanna Raju, who was the former chief, he was gunned down in the first week of June this year. This statement by Abhay actually mentions that Basavanna Raju's death has forced them to rethink their strategy, and they're accepting Home Minister and Prime Minister's appeal to give up arms and try and join the peace process, try and join the mainstream.
Well, viewers, this is the map that I was referring to on the right. And remember, the Congress party recently in the vice president poll faced a lot of flack, viewers, because they picked their candidate who was a former judge, justice of the Supreme Court, who had actually struck down the Salva Judum, which was a group that was set up at the village level, etc., defense level, to take on Maoist terror. And that was struck down. So the symbolism of picking somebody who was seen to be sympathetic to the cause should not be lost, viewers, in this entire episode today. But look at this map. In 2007, I was talking about that red corridor in the center of your screens, viewers. You saw it extended all the way up from Karnataka, all the way up, viewers, to the borders of Nepal, all the way up to the border of China, and so on and so forth. You can see it's a huge, and the reddish areas are where the concentration of these terrorists was the densest. And over the years, this shrank to the point where it became almost inviolable for these people to continue. So on the corner on the top right is 2013, and then of course 2018, which was just before COVID. That's where these people had got sort of restricted to in a border region between Andhra and Orissa, completely shrunk. And after that, viewers, over the last 7 years, more forces have penetrated and completely eviscerated these camps that were set up, which had almost become like free states within India. I just want to go back to some of our guests, and I also want to bring in Arunima once. Arunima, their progression. Just 1 second, Sanju Verma. I'll just come out to you. Just setting the facts out for our viewers. Just a breaking story. Their reactions also coming in. Arunima, this is fundamental to understand that this particular corridor extended. It was almost a free region, autonomous region within the country, where separate laws existed, where these individuals were actually carrying out what was known as a parallel government.
Yes, absolutely. From Pashupatinath to Tirupati, which means from Nepal all the way to Andhra Pradesh, they wanted to draw a red corridor where they called our democracy a pigsty. They said that the parliamentary procedure and the democratic traditions were not something that they were in agreement with. Their own diktat run. Anybody could be picked up, accused of being a police informer, taken to their own court, kangaroo court as the establishment would call them, and that person could be prosecuted. And even as this step up in security and operations have been going on, there are villagers in Narayanpur, villagers in Bijapur, in Dantewada, who have been picked up by CPI Maoists, labeled police informer, and lynched to death. So this is still happening. But I think this letter, and I have to underline this yet again, government so far is still being very cautious, because in the past too, such letters have been issued by CPI Maoists. And like I told you, in Andhra Pradesh, the experience was they offered ceasefire, government took that offer, and just when they thought that, peace negotiations could move in, CPI Maoists backtracked, regrouped, and attacked again. I think that's the reason that the government is being very cautious. But at the same time,
that's the point Sushant Sareen was making.
That CPI Maoist is at its worst position possible in the last 2 decades. Their back, as far as their leadership is concerned, has really been broken. Their cadre is now surrendering in large numbers. So this could be the government.
And the people who provide them ideological oxygen, the so-called urban Maoists, are also under pressure. And who sustain that ecosystem, viewers? Do I need to tell you? First, they came up with the name urban Maoists. And I'm talking about Chidambaram and the UPA, and submitted an affidavit in the Supreme Court. Then, viewers, they did a complete U-turn and started saying that these people were fighting for indigenous rights and so on and so forth. Mr. Jain, the Congress party and the way it went about prosecuting this war against red terror is completely exposed. This is what can be done if you commit muscle, if you commit men, if you have political intent. And we saw what was happening under the Congress for the largest period of time. Very clear.
Rahul, first of all, I hope that you're seeing the maps that you're showing on television right now. Those maps do not contain the entire territory of Jammu and Kashmir. They are removing the POK territory from Indian territory. So please have that fixed, number one. Number two, there are 3 maps that you're showing. One shows the extent of the red corridor in 2007, one in 2013, and one in 2018, right? And your viewers can very well see that the most substantial decline in terms of the red districts, the severely affected districts, happened from 2007 to 13, and the decline continues.
Mr.
Even
Jain,
if you look at the number of casualties,
the question was very simple. I don't want you to do the job of a reporter. I'm asking you a question. This is a complete. No, hang on. This is a complete. This is a complete. This is no. There's no narrative here. This is a stark reality. This is a stark reality. So I'm asking you, why couldn't this be achieved under the UPA?
This was achieved. Do you remember who was in the government from 2007 to 2013?
Viewers,
why being so
there is a problem here. There is a problem. The entire cadre of the leadership of the Congress in the state of Chhattisgarh was wiped out. They started from zero. Okay, one second, Mr. Jain. 1 second. Yes. Yeah.
Rahul, if you just want to peddle a narrative, there's no point of.
Okay, sir. You guys did a great job. Please, thank you very much. Yes. Sanju Verma.
Thank you. Rahul, I just want to very quickly say, two things.
Yeah.
Be it Prime Minister Narendra Modi or Union Home Minister Amit Shah, they've said that the only way we contained Naxalism and Maoist terror was through a two-pronged strategy. One was to empower our people on the ground, be it the CRPF or the specialized, commando battalion called Cobra. And two was to ensure that development actually reached the doorstep of these Naxals and they were mainstream. The Modi government was very clear, jahan zarurat padegi, danda bhi chalega, and where the need arises, a soft, carrot-based approach will be taken to ensure that these people are mainstreamed. And I think it's a balanced approach of both these measures that has finally yielded results.
Okay.
Because it's very important to realize that when Bhupesh Baghel was the CM, very quickly, 3 of the most deadliest ambushes took place, one in Dantewada, one in Sukma, and one in Bijapur.
Yeah.
Why is it that Naxal attacks have reduced and almost gone to zero after Vishnu Deo Sai of the BJP became the Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh? It shows that the leadership at the top also matters. Bhupesh Baghel turned a blind eye, and I will end by saying one thing. The Nandini Sundar versus the state of Chhattisgarh judgment given by, B. Sudarshan Reddy and his acolytes, that came about when Bhupesh Baghel was the sitting Chief Minister of Chhattisgarh. So Nandini Sundar would today be shedding copious tears that, the Naxal movement has almost disappeared in large parts of Gadchiroli in Maharashtra, in Telangana and Chhattisgarh, which were the most infested states.
Okay, well, she's not here, of course, to defend herself, so we don't know what's going through her mind. It's a conjecture. I'll leave it at that. But 1 second, I want to bring in General Pandey. General Pandey, you've been, of course, engaged in counter-insurgency a long time, but this is of a very different nature. What made the NDA government better equipped to deal with this threat than the UPA?
So, I will not get into the comparison because it will put me on crossfire in so many manners. I'm not scared of crossfires, but the fact of the matter remains that let me just see what the major change is. Somebody mentioned, I'm sure, I'm not sorry who mentioned, but leadership matters, right? Let's be very clear. So while everybody may fake around this fact, leadership does matter because it gives you direction, it gives you a push. It also at times gives you a kick from back, and also allows you to be enabled, empowered to achieve end state which are given by the government of India. Very quickly, just imagine 370. I have been there when 370 was abrogated, just about 4 or 5 months before that. I was never ever I had already done 6 tenures in Valley. I never thought any government of India will come into power which will have the gumption to remove it. It is not transformational, it is actually shocking the system to change. So 370 was a major transformation. It has not happened only because of, we were always there. We brought the system under control. The security system always got the peace into Valley. But eventually there was a requirement of changing the entire paradigm and go to some other level. And that happened on by 370 application. Similarly, I've been watching very closely because it is security matters. National security is not only about LC and the border, but what emanates from internal is what is the cancer which eats you from inside, right? External issues are easy to handle, but internal matters are not so easy. So there are 2 prongs, I think, which I need to identify, and compliments to CRPF and all the security forces who were on the ground, right? Also compliments to number of unsung heroes in terms of the bureaucrats who are on the ground to have achieved what they have achieved today. But let's see, in the very slow, steady, but sure manner, the size of this red infested area has continued to reduce.
Decrease, yeah.
And it has gone on two prong. One is certain amount of development and outreach program which has happened, but it has followed on the tail of a very, very muscular program in which large number of soldiers of CRPF and people on the ground have
A
lost
combination,
their lives.
says General Pandey, a combination. Yes, Sushant Sareen, raising your hand before I move on to another big story. Yes.
You know, apart from everything else that General Pandey is speaking about, I think what you need is also clarity
Yes.
on what you want to do. You know, you mentioned certain champagne liberals and champagne Maoists who love going to cocktail parties and then speaking about left-wing extremism as though it's something really nice and sexy thing to do. In the last 10 years, there was no space for this bunch of people. They could not influence policy. And I agree that Mr. Chidambaram was very emphatic when he wanted to go after the Maoists at one point of time. In fact, there were a couple of encounters in which some very senior Maoists were killed. But I don't think Mr. Chidambaram will ever agree. There were certain pressures put on him and he backed off.
Yes.
And where were those pressures put? Because these champagne liberals came and
Well,
started.
some of them were
influencing
part
by
of the
chemistry.
parallel, as you know. I mean, I don't want to say it, but
Which is why I am saying that there was
Yeah.
no clarity on what exactly clarity of purpose has to be there, right?
absolutely. So leadership, clarity of purpose, focus, and of course, viewers, a plan. I just want to quickly move on because there's been another very big development that I just want to quickly apprise you of. Sanju Verma is just